In the Ghoul, we see two very different people. Cooper Howard, who, before the bombs dropped, is a man of loyalty and integrity. And the Ghoul, who, after the bombs dropped, is filled with cynicism and a complete lack of respect for human life. How did Cooper Howard become the Ghoul? I don't mean physically. We know how he physically became the Ghoul. We see where he is the moment the bombs drop in 2077. He's performing at a child's birthday party with his daughter. He tells his daughter that in the event of a nuclear detonation, if the mushroom cloud is bigger than your thumb, then there's no point in even running.
Is it your thumb or mine?
The mushroom cloud was bigger than her thumb. It was bigger than his thumb. And yet he ran anyway. He had to save his daughter. We get the impression that he was successful, or at least he thought he was successful. We'll tackle that in a bit. But he wasn't able to secure shelter for himself, which is why he's wandering the wasteland 200 years after the apocalypse, and he's a ghoul. He became a ghoul because he was exposed to the fallout from the nuclear detonations of 2077. The show is very clear about how he physically turned into the Ghoul. But how did his character completely change? And is there anything of the original Cooper Howard left in the Ghoul? Cooper Howard was a Hollywood film star. He was an A-list celebrity. He made his living pretending to be a cowboy on the silver screen. While on set during the filming of one of his pictures, we see him taking on the role of a sheriff. The script wants him to shoot a bad guy in the head, but Cooper Howard pauses. He hesitates. He doesn't want to do it.
Do I really have to kill him?
Cut!
Coop doesn't think that a hero sheriff would be very noble to murder an unarmed man, even if he was a villain, by shooting him in the head. He doesn't think it's very noble to execute this man without giving him due process. But the director tells him that it's necessary. And it's necessary due to the political climate in America at the time. With America being at war with communist China, the public was consumed with fear of communists. They were afraid of communist infiltrators in every corner of American society, particularly in Hollywood, harkening back to the McCarthyism of our own era. Because of this, any actor who even had the suspicion of being a communist, anyone who was accused, accurately or inaccurately, of being a communist, was axed by the studio.
Hollywood Reds. I'm telling you, radicalism is sweeping through Hollywood like a bad case of the clap. I've even got your friend Charlie Whiteknife.
Are you kidding me? Charlie? I serve with that guy.
I have meetings and everything.
Is Bob around here anywhere?
Bob's been fired.
Why?
See, it turns out Bob's a bit of a communist.
Communist? Cadillac Bob?
Cadillac Bob, the very one.
The audience wants to be reminded how tough and resourceful real Americans are, to make them feel more comfortable in this uncertain political climate. That's why Cooper Howard's character needs to be a beef-eating American patriot, not afraid to bring the law, and also to lay down a heaping dose of Wild West justice.
The audience, Coop, they want to see that even a good man as yourself can be driven
Yeah, I
too far
understand that, but that's not
sometimes.
really my thing. You know, Emil, that's not what I do. I mean,
Please.
Right.
Because out here, it's just you, your gun, and your personal code, bringing order to the wild, wild west.
And Cooper Howard was a patriot. He wasn't a communist. He loved his country. He served his country. He was a soldier during the Battle of Anchorage. He fought the commies in a suit of T-45 power armor.
Well, back when I was in the Marines, I wore the T-45 when we almost lost the great state of Alaska to the Reds. Sorry you couldn't make it to the party the other night, Charlie. Guess you had one of your meetings, huh? One of your communist meetings? Come on, man. We watched people die together up north fighting against all that horse shit.
Yeah, and for what?
For the American dream.
He didn't just support America in the war, but he was also concerned about the well-being of his fellow soldiers. He didn't see himself or his fellow soldiers as mere cannon fodder. He didn't see their lives as being expendable as long as America's goals were met. which is why he was so frustrated with Bud Askins when he found out that Bud used to work at West Tech, which produced the T-45 suit of power armor, knowing that there was a fatal flaw in the design.
West Tech.
It's a defense contractor.
Oh, I'm very familiar with you guys. You designed the T-45 power armor.
Your first of its kind. You know, the design flaws were ridiculous, but they sure looked great.
Those design flaws of yours cost a lot of good men and women their lives.
Producing the T-45 with a design flaw was probably cheaper and led to the series of power armor being deployed quickly in Anchorage. So it was probably a no-brainer. Of course they were going to release the power armor in the state it was, because it was worth risking the lives of their soldiers in order to deploy a piece of technology onto the battlefield that could turn the tide of the war. But Cooper Howard didn't see it that way. He valued the lives of his fellow soldiers. Those lives had meaning, those people had dignity, and they weren't expendable. West Tech should have done everything they could have to ensure that the T-45 suit of power armor didn't have any design flaws. He valued human life more than West Tech's profits and America's technological superiority on the battlefield. That's why he objected the way he did. But that didn't mean he was a communist. He still loved his country. He still believed in his country. He believed in capitalism. He believed in American companies, which is why when his wife, who worked at Vault-Tec, approached him to become the face of Vault-Tec, he agreed to do it. However, we get the impression that he was hesitant to do it. On numerous occasions when Cooper Howard is talking with his wife or with people at Vault-Tec, he says something that leads us to believe that he's not exactly thrilled about becoming the poster child for Vault-Tec.
You know, I've never done an advertisement before in my life. But then again, my wife has never asked me to. The things I'm willing to do for you never cease to amaze me.
Later on, he says to Ms. Williams that he's not ashamed about having a sponsor.
Well, this is America. Everybody has a sponsor, and I'm not ashamed to earn a living.
And he's probably not. Ideologically, having a sponsor while living in a capitalist nation makes a lot of sense. But when you get a sponsor, in some way, you cheapen your own brand. You sacrifice a little bit of your own integrity, especially if the sponsor isn't a very scrupulous company. Now, at this point in time, Cooper Howard really has no reason to think that Vault-Tec is an unscrupulous company. Perhaps it's because he hasn't been listening to the gossip that other people in Hollywood have been saying about Vault-Tec. Because clearly other celebrities in Hollywood know something about Vault-Tec that causes them to despise the company. He learns this firsthand when he has drinks with Charlie, the old co-star of his who got axed by the studio for being a communist.
Vault-Tec's the devil, man.
My wife works there.
And his career begins to suffer for it. Because his wife asked him to, he agreed to become the face of Vault-Tec. He agreed to become the original Vault Boy. But by becoming the face of Vault-Tec, he alienated everyone else in Hollywood. The reverse of the Red Scare happened to him. Instead of losing his job because he was too communist, he began to lose work because he was too capitalist. Or rather, because he chose to hop in the saddle with a company that had a bad reputation.
I think Hollywood actor friends, they want to be seen celebrating with the pitch man for the end of the world.
Here, I lost a movie over these ads. Yeah, showed up set. The actors wouldn't come out of their trailers. Lonnie Lewis said it was on moral grounds.
Okay.
Perhaps that's why he was so hesitant to work with Vault-Tec. Maybe he had heard the rumors of what Vault-Tec was really doing. But he couldn't say no to his wife. He loved his wife. He adored his wife. Wherever she was, his eyes were drawn to her. When at the studio filming a movie, she comes on set and he can't look away. He ends his conversation with the director just so he can go and flirt with her.
You gonna save any of that grape taffy for the rest of us?
It's not grape, it's lavender. You know, a lot of people like to write it off as some old lady flavor, but it tastes like someone touching you for the first time.
After shooting the Vault 4 commercial, his wife comes on set, and he can't look away. he finds a reason to move away from Bud Askins so he can get close to his wife and flirt with her.
I'm at work.
Oh, how about we clock out?
He adored his wife. But Barb kind of seemed to be annoyed by him. She's flattered by the attention of Hollywood actor Cooper Howard, but she only ever appears to be proud of him when he's serving the interests of Vault-Tec. The rest of the time, she kind of treats him like a nuisance. And this is an absolute tragedy. Rewatching these scenes and taking a look at her facial expressions and the way she looks at other Vault-Tec employees and the way she looks a little nervous and uncomfortable when he gets a little too handsy-feely with her, she doesn't act towards him the way he acts towards her. She probably knew that by asking him to become the face of Vault-Tec, she was asking him to do something that made him uncomfortable. But she did it anyway. And the truly cold and eerie aspect of this is the other Vault-Tec employees refer to their relationship as a business connection.
We wanted to say how delighted we are that Barb could use her connections to get to you.
She used her connection with him to get him to be the face of Vault-Tec. They were married. That's more than just a business connection. And he did it because he loved her and he didn't want to disappoint her. And he did the Vault 4 commercial because he loved her and he didn't want to disappoint her. And then what does she do?
There is a rap party.
A rap party? For this?
Yes, it's at our house.
She invites Vault-Tec to a rap party at their family home without even talking to Cooper about it. She tells him about it the day of the party, and he's clearly disappointed. He just wanted to spend time with his wife. But he goes along with it because he loves his wife. But even when he gets what he wants, when he finally gets some alone time with her in a hot tub drinking martinis, it appears like she's just placating him here. She shows up, she hops in the tub to, satiate him for a little bit, but she doesn't stay very long. She's the first one out of the tub. He's in the middle of talking with her when she just leaves. I don't think Barb was always like this. I'm sure she married him because she genuinely loved him. And in fact, I think that even at this point in the story, she still genuinely loves him. But I think she's overwhelmed with worry about what's coming. She's a high-ranking Vault-Tec executive, and what she knows, what she has learned about the end of the world and about what Vault-Tec is planning has preoccupied her mind to such an extent that everything her husband says, anything he's interested in, seems frivolous by comparison. She knows things about what Vault-Tec is planning that she's not sharing with her husband.
It guarantees us a spot in the vault.
We've got money. We can buy a spot in the vault.
One of the good vaults.
What's that supposed to mean?
And knowing these things that have impact on their lives gives her great anxiety to the point where she can't enjoy her normal life. She can't enjoy her relationship. Of course, Cooper Howard doesn't know any of this. So when he offhandedly suggests moving away from the city and starting a ranch, it's because he doesn't know exactly how close to the end of the world humanity really is. But she knows this. And instead of forgiving him for his ignorance, because how could he know? She holds it against him.
Every day I go into work and I think about how humanity can survive a nuclear event that will wipe out 90% of life on Earth. And I come home and you're talking to me about hiding out at a ranch up in Bakersfield. Yeah, I don't even know what planet you're on sometimes, Coop.
At this point, Cooper Howard is starting to see things that are becoming a bit hard to deny. Everyone around him hates Vault-Tec. His friends are saying that Vault-Tec is the devil. His wife Barb, who works at Vault-Tec, is becoming increasingly preoccupied with her work to the point where their relationship is suffering. She's even taking her work home with her, and seeing her put on a Pip-Boy seemed so out of character for her that it startled Cooper.
Oh, come on. You've seen these around.
Not on you, I haven't.
He's not a communist, but he recognizes that something isn't right. He sees that something is weighing upon his wife, and he's worried about her, which is why he was open to the idea of going to the Hollywood Forever Cemetery to listen to a talk by Ms. Williams. But during that talk, she says stuff about America that he can't stomach.
When you think of the promise of the American dream, you think of California. But it is just a dream. It's not real.
That's about all the horseshit I can take.
It's only when Ms. Williams says that she knows something about his wife that he might not know that he decides to stick around.
You see, it happens that I know your wife. And perhaps a side of her you don't.
He loves his wife, and he's worried about his wife.
How do you know my wife?
My research company was acquired by her division.
What is it?
It's a listening device.
A listening device. What did you... You want me to spy on my wife?
That's why he decides to install the device in her Pip-Boy to eavesdrop on her conversations. But almost immediately he regrets it. He realizes that what he's doing is a huge invasion of privacy. And again, he wants to trust her. He can't imagine that she would possibly be involved in anything unscrupulous.
Back there.
You're right, Roosevelt. What are you thinking?
His dog Roosevelt here is acting as his conscience. And that, I think, is because we learn that Cooper Howard has a special connection with dogs. He loves dogs. He talks to Roosevelt as if he was a person, using Roosevelt as a sounding board for his own inner thoughts.
Roosevelt, I'm sorry you can't come, buddy. I'm heading into enemy territory.
One of the movies he's most famous for is called A Man and His Dog. His dog Roosevelt is the very dog who starred alongside him.
Yeah, I love that one too. It was my real dog.
Roosevelt is there watching Cooper install the monitoring device on Barb's Pip-Boy, and he's watching as Coop eavesdrops on his wife, almost like a guilty conscience judging him, which is why he immediately regrets what he has done and throws away the device. But he still doesn't have any answers. He still can't explain his wife's recent coolness towards him, and this culminates in an argument during dinner about dogs.
You know, no dogs in the vaults.
Says who? No dogs. In the vault, says who?
That's the policy. Yet dogs eat meat. It's an avoidable inefficiency.
Coop loves dogs, and Vault Tech has decided that there won't be any dogs in vaults. This pisses him off, but it's more than just about dogs.
That's not really the question, is it? Who decided that there were no dogs in the vault? Who makes the rules? Because no dogs allowed, that is a new rule. I mean, what else do you have in store for us? Are the blue jumpsuits, are those mandatory? What if I don't want to wear a blue jumpsuit? What if I want to wear a green one?
So the bomb falls and you want to know about your wardrobe?
No, I want to know about my freedom. I didn't go to war defending that freedom so that I could live in a cellar under the boot heel of Chairman Bud Askett.
It's about freedom and individuality. His wife is working for a company that is creating a bunch of vaults where human society will continue to thrive underground for God knows how long. And what he's learning in this exchange is that some company will be dictating parts of their lives. That is un-American. And Coop is a patriot. Coop believes in freedom. He values human life. He values a person's individuality. And now, because he's in a vault, some overseer is gonna come up and say, you can't have a dog because dogs eat meat? That concerned Coop enough to fish his monitoring device out of the trash.
No dogs in the vault, huh?
He needs to find out if the rumors in Hollywood are true. He needs to find out what Vault Tech is really doing, and he needs to know how involved his wife is in it. Which leads us to Coop's great heartbreak. He goes into Vault Tech headquarters while his wife is having a meeting with Bud Askins and the heads of some of the major corporations in America. He sits in the waiting room, listening in to their conversation. He begins to hear all of the awful, evil, crony capitalistic rhetoric that all of these CEOs are spouting. But even at this point, he has faith in his wife. When it's her turn to talk, he knows she's gonna set them straight.
Come on, Barb. Set them straight.
because he still sees his wife as a force of good in Vault-Tec. Sure, Vault-Tec may be an evil corporation, but a great way to combat an evil corporation is to put good people in that corporation who have power and influence. He knows his wife always tries to do the right thing. That's why he loves her.
I know you always try to do the right thing. That's what I love about you.
And that's exactly what his wife is. A good woman with power and influence. At least, so he thought.
There's a lot of earning potential with the end of the world. How can you guarantee results?
By dropping the bomb ourselves.
But then the apocalypse comes out of her very mouth. And that's when Cooper Howard's world changes. He trusted Barb completely. He trusted Barb with his fortune, with his family, with his heart. And all this time, she knows that Vault-Tec is planning to drop the bombs. That Vault-Tec is planning to end civilization. That is a betrayal. Vault-Tec is talking about betraying America.
America outsourced the survival of this country to the private sector, but it would have been insane to keep a failed nation alive, so we kept Vault-Tec alive instead.
Vault-Tec is talking about betraying the human species. His wife is talking about betraying him and their little family. Coming to terms with the fact that you've been lied to. That the person you loved, the person you admired, never really existed. That that person was someone else entirely the entire time. That that person was using you to not just get what she wanted, but to get what her company wanted. That kind of betrayal can shatter your entire identity. The show doesn't tell us what happened between this point and the bombs dropping, but it gives us plenty of clues to piece it together. We know that Coop loved Barb because he thought she always tried to do the right thing, but that was a lie. So maybe he fell out of love with her. That could be one reason that they got divorced. But also, Barb noticed that something was wrong with her Pip-Boy.
What's wrong?
My Pip-Boy, it's been acting strange. The transmitter is always activated. I can fix it myself. I just need to figure out where the Pip-Boy is trying to transmit to.
I'm heading out.
It's likely that after this, she discovered that Coop was spying on her. Or maybe Ms. Williams' device installed some sort of nefarious software on her Pip-Boy that compromised her role at Vault-Tec. That may be why they got divorced. And we learned that they got divorced during the birthday party. One of the fathers talks about him paying alimony.
Why the hell is Cooper Howard working kids' birthday parties?
What else? Alimony.
This was likely a very public divorce. And Barb was a member of Vault-Tec, the most powerful company in America. And what happens when you go against a powerful company? You get labeled a communist.
I'm not a communist, Mr. Howard. That's just a dirty word they use to describe people who aren't insane.
Cooper Howard was unlucky enough to get canceled first by Hollywood because he was too capitalist, and then by corporate America because he was too communist, which we again learn at the birthday party when one of the dads calls him a pinko commie.
Pinko.
Yeah, he still took my money.
He's doing kids' birthday parties because he needs money to pay alimony. After learning what Vault-Tec was really doing, his principles kicked in, and he couldn't be the face of Vault-Tec anymore. Even though he's the one who came up with the idea for the Vault Boys thumb up, he refused to ever do it again because it was so iconically linked with Vault-Tec.
Oh, Coop, do your thumbs up.
Yeah, given the state of everything, I prefer not to if that's all right.
Why not? That's what you're famous for.
Why wouldn't you do it? The thumbs up.
Oh, it's grown-up stuff.
And after everything he's been through with Vault-Tec, he just couldn't bear to do it. Cooper Howard became the Ghoul because despite being an American patriot, he was betrayed by corporate America. Despite being an ethical man, he was betrayed by Hollywood. And despite being a loving and devoted husband, he was betrayed by his wife. The bombs dropped on October 23rd, 2077. We see Cooper Howard on a horse racing off into the distance, trying in vain to escape the nuclear fallout of multiple atomic detonations. We don't know what happened to his daughter Janie, but we do know that here, Cooper Howard dies. But 219 years later, the Ghoul emerges. What has the Ghoul been doing for these past 2 centuries? Well, Cooper Howard was an actor, and he was typecast as a cowboy. And so he leaned into the only role he knew. Except instead of being a lawbringer, instead of being a sheriff, he became a bounty hunter and an outlaw. The symbolism between the 2 characters is apparent. Cooper Howard wore a white hat. The Ghoul wears a dark brown hat. Cooper Howard wears a gold neckerchief and a sheriff's star. The Ghoul wears a tattered leather jacket and a bandolier. But both characters wear the same blue and gold cowboy shirt. It's the same shirt Cooper Howard was wearing the day the bombs dropped, and he's still got it on 219 years later. There is much about this Ghoul that has changed, but there's still something about this Ghoul that's familiar. He may now be a gunslinger like the man he pretended to be for Hollywood, but he's not concerned with bringing law and order. His only concern is survival. The Ghoul has spent 200 years making a reputation for himself as a cutthroat, no-nonsense bounty hunter who shoots first and asks questions later. He'll work with anyone as long as the price is right, something we learn from Sorrel Booker, a gang leader that the Ghoul has worked for in the past.
You boys know who you just brought in? This sumbitch right here used to be the best bounty hunter to ever shoot a man in the ass.
Would you mind? Come on now, Sorrel, we old friends, ain't we?
He was extremely good at what he did, and being a good bounty hunter, being a good gun for hire, made him a lot of enemies, which is why he was buried in Dom Pedro's cemetery to begin with. Dom Pedro was a local warlord or gang leader somewhere south and east of California, perhaps someplace in Mexico. Dom Pedro managed to apprehend him, likely because the Ghoul has cost him so much money in the past, killing his people, or maybe by competing with him. He buried him underground and kept him from going feral by connecting him to an IV drip filled with medicine, exhuming him every year or so to torture him, and there he kept the Ghoul for over 30 years.
How about we put you right back in that hole so Don Pedro can have his fun with you for the next 30 years?
But once he gets his freedom, we see that he doesn't like being anyone's servant. He doesn't even like being anyone's partner. He doesn't like owing favors, and he doesn't tolerate being threatened. He kills Honcho and his thugs because they expected him to be their little servant, and because he was sure that they were going to turn on him in the end. The Ghoul has become cynical. He no longer believes in the good nature of humankind. Now that he's free, what are his motivations? Well, money. The reason Honcho freed the Ghoul is because a new mercenary contract came on the wire to track down Wilzig and get his artifact. The Ghoul takes up the contract and heads back to California. We learn that there were 6 different mercenary agencies that had put out a contract for Wilzig.
Last night, a bounty came in through all 6 agencies. A hefty price on the head of a man that fits the description of that fellow right there.
And the Ghoul is there to collect. He doesn't care about the character of Wilzig. He doesn't care about whether or not Wilzig is a good guy or a bad guy. He doesn't care anything about the Enclave. He cares about one thing: fulfilling this contract and getting money, which is why he's the first one to pull the trigger in the streets of Philly, which is why he tried to kill Lucy, an innocent vault dweller, in the streets of Philly. The Ghoul has become a cynical hedonist. He exists to make money and feel good while doing it. During the battle in Philly, the Ghoul is clearly having a good time.
But for me, well, I do this shit for the love of the game.
He opened fire on Wilzig because Wilzig was the target of his contract. But he didn't start firing at the people of Philly until they fired upon him first. Afterwards, however, he became flippant.
Damn, y'all ain't got me working up an appetite. For the tomatoes.
He was in his element now. The rest of the town attacking him just made the entire experience more fulfilling for him. This is what he wanted. He wanted them to attack because he derives pleasure from combat. We have to remember that he's been walking this earth for over 200 years. He's seen everything. And at this point, life is truly cheap to him. He's seen generation after generation lie and steal and scavenge to survive, only to ultimately die and have it all start all over again. Cooper Howard was upset with Westtech for a design flaw that led to the deaths of individual soldiers that he fought with. But now that he has the perspective of time, what had once appeared to be a rare and finite resource, now is commonplace and mundane. There was once a Cooper Howard who believed in the sanctity of human life, but that man is gone. The Ghoul sees human life as cheap, and combat is one of the few things left on this planet that truly thrills him. He wears a broad smile on his face throughout the entire battle in Philly, and he casually toys with the people he's just fatally wounded for the fun of it.
Well, I'd offer you one of these cherry tomatoes, but you got a hole in your neck.
He admits that he's a frequent chem abuser.
Well, now that is a very small drop in a very, very large bucket of drugs.
And we see this on full display in the Super Duper Mart. He finds a stockpile of chems and gorges himself on them. He finds alcohol and drinks it as if it was water. This is all he has to live for now. Combat is the only thing that gives him any pleasure, and abusing drugs and alcohol numbs the pain. And it's only understanding what has happened to Cooper Howard that we understand why he's in pain. The Ghoul is not the first person to have had everything taken from him. Countless lives were destroyed in 2077, but so many of them rolled over and died. So many of them lacked the will to survive, to do whatever it took to see one more day. Lucy asks a great question when she sees that the Ghoul is a cannibal, that he will stoop to any depravity just to see one more day. She asks,
How do you live like this? Why keep going?
And that question pissed him off, because the answer to that question was very personal. We only learn the answer to that question much later when the Ghoul is talking with crime boss Sorrel Booker, a man who has known him for decades, a man who knows what he's been looking for.
Look at you, 200 years. I don't know what keeps you going, or maybe you're still looking for her.
He's looking for her. The show leads us to believe that the her Sorrel Booker was referring to might have been Moldaver, because immediately after this conversation, the Ghoul picks up a picture of Moldaver. But that's not who he was looking for. That's not why he refuses to die. We find out who he's looking for at the very end of the series. We find out what still motivates him after all these years when he confronts Hank McClane.
Now, I've waited over 200 years to ask somebody one question. Where's my family?
He's looking for his family. And it's here we learn that Janie, his daughter, survived the apocalypse of 2077, or at least Cooper Howard thinks she might have survived. The her he was looking for wasn't Moldaver, it was his wife, because his wife must know where their daughter is, and he's looking for them both. Had he just been looking for his wife, he would have said, "Where's my wife?" Had he just been looking for his daughter, he would have said, "Where's my daughter?" But he didn't. He said, "Where's my family?" implying that he thinks, at least, that they're both still alive somewhere.
War never changes. You look out at this wasteland, looks like chaos. But there's always somebody behind the wheel, and that's who I want to talk to.
The reason he's a bounty hunter, the reason he's interested in money, is because he needs money to afford a drug that prevents him from going feral. We learn this when he finds an old friend in the ruins of a doctor's office.
You've outlasted us all. How long since you first started wastelanding?
A long time.
It's a lot of vials.
Well, I've always been good at making money, Roger.
He was always good at making money. He was always good at having enough of this drug to prevent from going feral. And he needs to prevent going feral so he can keep searching for his family. All of it, everything he does, is so that he can find his family. The Ghoul had been buried underground for over 30 years. He was just now getting into the swing of things. The first thing he did upon emerging is take up a contract so he could get more money so he could find more drugs to keep from going feral. It was by sheer chance that he meets Lucy McLean, a woman who was not a product of the wasteland, a woman who reminded him of the man he used to be. And that reminder pained him and angered him. He had become cynical. There wasn't a place in the wasteland for a person who thought like Lucy did. There wasn't a place in the wasteland for a person who thought like Cooper Howard did, which is why Cooper Howard had to go, and the Ghoul had to replace him, which I think is why he was so cruel to Lucy. And his cruelty was really unnecessary. One might be tempted to say that he was being cruel as a way to teach her a lesson, to bring out that wastelander that she would need to become in order to survive.
Now you get me. There you are, you little killer.
But that's not how it turned out at all, and his cruelty often backfired on him. He used Lucy as bait. It wasn't torture. He even said so himself.
Torture is wrong!
Well, I ain't torturing you, sweetheart. I'm using you as bait.
He used her as bait to lure the Gulper. But because he used her as bait, in an effort to save herself, she damaged his handbag, which destroyed the drug that was keeping him from going feral. I'm not sure how he would have lured the Gulper without using her as bait. But had he not used her as bait, he wouldn't have lost his supply of drugs. Being cruel in this situation didn't help him. It set him back. And being cruel to Lucy on their march to find more of these drugs didn't make Lucy tougher, didn't teach her any lessons. She was dying of thirst, and he drank in front of her and then poured the rest on the sand. This, of course, forced her later to drink irradiated water. But that irradiated water didn't help her, didn't make her better. It made her sick to the point where she collapsed and would have died had Maximus not provided her with Radaway.
Hey, you have radiation sickness. I got Radaway left in the sleeve of my armor. You can have it if you let me out. If you don't get this medicine, you're gonna pass out. Okay? And if you lose consciousness, we're both gonna die.
By not helping her find purified water, he wasn't doing her any favors. He was just pushing her closer to death. There was no need to taunt her here. He did that for the sheer pleasure of shocking her. If he was trying to teach her a lesson, he failed to do so, because Lucy instead ended up teaching him a lesson. Remember, he literally sold her to organ harvesters. He had no expectation of ever seeing her again. He was selling her to her death in exchange for this wonder chem that kept him from becoming a ghoul. It doesn't make any sense to spend time and energy trying to teach somebody how to become a wasteland survivor if your plan is just to have her killed anyway. But despite this, Lucy shows him mercy, and he gets what he needs to keep from turning into a ghoul.
I may end up looking like you, I'll never be like you.
Something happens to the ghoul after Lucy leaves. The first thing he does upon regaining his strength is take more of the wonder drug that keeps him from going feral. But then he does other drugs. Then he drinks alcohol to push away his pain. Then he sits down and he finds an old holotape, a tape with a film that he once starred in, and the memories start rushing back. For 200 years, he's been living as a person that made sense to him given his cynical worldview. But here, Lucy proved to him that the man he became wasn't destined for every survivor. That you could survive, you could meet your goals, you could find success while maintaining your integrity. That's why he took the heat when Sorrel Booker's thugs came to the chop shop.
Destroying a legitimate business? That's illegal around these parts.
They saw him there and they assumed that he's the one who tore up the place. And he could have denied it. He could have said that it was Lucy. Some evil member of Vault Tech did this. But he didn't. He covered for her. He took the blame.
You know why these boys brought you in?
Cause I f***ed up a poor defenseless gang-affiliated organ dealership.
Yep, but that super-duper mart you gutted was under our protection.
Now, you got anything to say in your defense? Guilty as charged.
Just like that.
Just like that.
After being apprehended by Sorrel Booker, he has to kill the men who kidnapped him, because they were going to take him out back and feed him to the hogs. But he's not smiling anymore. He kills them without an expression on his face. He is not deriving any pleasure from this. They're just in his way. He finds the wanted poster of Moldaver on the bulletin board, and at last he has a clue that can lead him to what he really wants. He recognizes her.
Why do you have this picture on your wall?
That's Moldaver.
That's not how I remember her at all.
He knows she was around before the bombs dropped like he was. He knows she had dealings with Vault Tech. At this point, she's the most likely person to have any answers about his family. But where does he go from here? Well, he knows Moldaver's reputation.
You a president now.
Don't say why not.
Oh, this is the first I'm hearing about this outfit. Now, what I am hearing is a whole lot of chatter about some woman, name of Moldaver.
He's surprised that Sorrel is calling himself a president because he's never heard of President Sorrel. When it comes to reinstating the government, it's Moldaver's name that keeps popping up, not Sorrel's. And being as old as he is, he knows the government that used to be here. He knows about the NCR. Therefore, Moldaver has to be part of the NCR. And so he tracks down someone he knows used to be part of the NCR. Someone he fought years ago.
I probably still got some of your lead in me somewhere. But today, I'm just looking for information.
He wants to know where Moldaver is. And from the boy, he learns that Moldaver is at the Griffith Observatory. He kills the boy in this scene. But this exchange is very different from all of the others that we've seen. In Philly, he taunted the people that he killed, because he was just having a good time. In this scene, he warns the boy. He doesn't shoot first. He gives the kid an opportunity to make peace, but he doesn't.
So what you think, Tommy? Am I really walking out of here today, or are you gonna try and draw on me for what I did to your big brother? You won't. Maybe not today, but maybe someday.
And when he kills this boy, he's not smiling. He's only doing it because the boy is an obstacle. That doesn't make it right. That doesn't make what he did here a good thing. But his motivation for killing in this scene is different from his motivations for killing in previous scenes. Cooper Howard changed after the nuclear apocalypse, but after meeting Lucy and rediscovering a trail that could lead him to what he really wants, he changes again. But there are also clues throughout the series that there's a part of Cooper Howard still in the Ghoul somewhere. When he finds his friend at the doctor's office, he sees that his friend is going feral.
You turn in.
pregnant, maybe.
There's no helping him now. There's no cure for being feral. Once you're feral, you're gone. The safest thing for everyone is to kill him here, but he does something else first.
Remember how good food used to taste?
Blamco mac and cheese.
Ice cream and apple pie.
Damn! Apple pie! You know, my mom used to...
He brings up a happy memory. The last thing on this ghoul's mind before he dies is a happy thought. That was unnecessary kindness. The ghoul gained nothing from doing that. And then, true, after Roger was dead, the ghoul pulled out his teeth to sell for caps and made jerky out of his butt. There is that. But he could have done that at any time. He could have killed Roger at any time in that conversation and then started to harvest his body. But he took the time to make sure that the last thing on Roger's mind before he died was a happy thought, remembering what food used to taste like and remembering his mom. And the ghoul still has a fondness for dogs. In the streets of Philly, he's attacked by CX-404, and he stabs the dog to defend himself. But after the dust settles and all his enemies are gone, he sees the wounded dog lying on the ground, and his face is filled with regret. Yes, there was a practical reason for reviving dog meat. He needed dog meat to hunt for his master so that he could fulfill the contract. But that practical need doesn't explain the look on his face. He's sad that he had to hurt this dog. When he revives the dog with a stim pack, he smiles. The health of this dog makes him happy. He travels with CX-404 for a good portion of the rest of the series, and the show juxtaposes scenes of Cooper Howard and Roosevelt with the ghoul and CX-404. Traveling with CX-404 reminds him of Roosevelt and reminds him of his conscience.
I'm sorry, dog meat, but you ain't him.
When he says that CX-404 isn't Roosevelt, he's also telling himself something. He's reminding himself that he's no longer Cooper Howard. But he wouldn't have to remind himself of that if the old Coop wasn't still in there somewhere. After losing CX-404, he finds the dog again at a super-duper mart. But by this time, he's already headed toward the Griffith Observatory. He no longer needs this dog in order to get what he wants. He chooses to travel with CX-404 because he wants to. He releases the dog from the Nuka-Cola machine as an act of kindness. And even after Wilzig's head has been discarded, and CX-404 is no longer trying to find it, at the end of the series we find the two traveling together, a compatible pair at the end of the world. I don't think the old Cooper Howard will ever come back, and he probably shouldn't come back. He misplaced his faith in Vault Tech, he misplaced his faith in America, he misplaced his faith in his wife, because he was too trusting. The ghoul developed a survival instinct that is now necessary to navigate this world. But I think the show has demonstrated that there's still part of the old Cooper Howard in the ghoul, a part that can guide his conscience in Season 2. As for his special stats, I think he's got a 3 in strength. He prefers handguns, he doesn't use melee combat very often, and he gets tossed around a lot in fights. A 7 in perception. Before the bombs, he was able to perceive that something was wrong with his wife, which led him to discover the truth about Vault Tech. And after the bombs, his excellent perception helped him track Wilzig's head and find his way to the Griffith Observatory. An 8 in endurance, and he'd have to have high endurance to last 219 years in a post-apocalyptic wasteland, to still be alive and not feral when so many other ghouls have gone feral. A charisma of 10. I mean, he was an A-list Hollywood actor. You gotta have high charisma to get to that point. And after the bombs, he used his charisma to elicit mercy from Lucy and to convince Sorrel to cut him free. A 3 in intelligence. And this might not be very generous towards the Ghoul. I wish I had more points to give him in intelligence, because I really don't think he's stupid. But he wasn't really interested in science or technology or even politics before the bombs dropped. And after the bombs, he doesn't use any high-tech gadgets at all. An 8 in agility. As a gunslinger, he's gonna have to have high agility, and he uses it to great effect in every single confrontation. And a 1 in luck. I can't think of anyone else who's been more unlucky in life, both before the bombs and after. But what do you think of the Ghoul? Do you find him as much of a sympathetic character as I do? Do you think he could possibly be redeemed in Season 2? Will he ever find his family? And if he does, will it be a happy reunion? And what do you think of his special stats? Where would you put them? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. I publish new Fallout videos each and every week on my channel, so if you don't want to miss my next one, be sure to subscribe and to click that bell notification button. If you have already, but you still feel like you're missing out on YouTube notifications, consider following me on Twitter at Oxhorn. I update Twitter manually with every new piece of content that I publish. I've got a plush for sale. It's in stock and ready to ship, but my inventory is limited and I'm almost out. If you want to make sure you get one before they're gone, snag one today. I have also got a shirt shop with completely unique designs that you can't find anywhere else. My designs come on shirts in a variety of men's, women's, and children's sizes, and in a wide array of colors. You can find them on other products as well, like smartphone cases, pillows, posters, mugs, stickers, prints, etc. So if interested, you can find a link to my shop in the description below, or you can click here. And if you like what I do, consider becoming a patron on Patreon or a member here on YouTube. YouTube members get little badges that appear next to their names in the comment sections of my videos, and they can use ox emojis in the chats of my live streams and in the comments of my videos. But more than anything, I'm just so glad you're here watching this video with me today. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you soon with more brand new videos.
Picking up high levels of radioactivity.